Show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
Hello,
hi there, folks. So
Yeah.
glad you could join us on this episode number 68, Aspasia,
I know.
of Down South Anomalies.
Here we go.
Forteana,
Yeah.
50 years of Fortean Times.
Yeah.
One of the most astounding, well, it started off as a fanzine.
It
Now
did.
it's a bi-monthly. It's a
No,
monthly.
it's a monthly. It was
magazine.
monthly for quite a while.
That's right.
And it's been monthly
Here
for
is
quite
the
a long
50th
time now.
issue.
Yep, that is the 50th.
But what we need to do is actually go back and have a look at this in terms of the man himself,
1973
Charles
to
Fort,
2023.
where it all
Yep,
came from.
absolutely.
But before that, ladies and gentlemen, we say every podcast that we are broadcasting on stolen land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and we want to acknowledge and respect elders past, present, and emerging. My name's Jay Katz.
Aspasia.
And you are on Untold Radio. Check out all those other astounding podcasts. Dr. Dean Bertram had his mother back on,
He did.
celebrating 4 years of
years.
Talking Weird.
Absolutely.
Now, the other thing, right at the start of this,
Mhm.
write this down if you've got a pen there. It's important. If you don't have a pen there, use the phone. But I'd go back to the pen because I think at some stage the electromagnetic
go
pulse weapon.
Back to the beginning of this and
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
be
Well,
recorded.
actually, that's very smart.
Yeah, it is.
So check out the episode of Talking Weird. And it might have been prior to Dean being on Untold Radio. It's beautifully shot in
Yeah.
this massive bookcase
Mhm.
in his house. And he discusses very succinctly,
Mhm.
very meticulously, the life of the extraordinary writer. And what I think was one of the greatest anomalous philosophers in the world is Charles Fort.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
Lived a very
Yes,
short life,
Yeah, he did.
57
Yeah.
years, 1874 to 1932.
Yeah.
But our title here is also,
Mhm.
it's about the notion of Forteana. And a lot of you are probably well aware of what it's like to be a Fortean. Would you consider yourself a Fortean?
I would consider myself a Fortean. I'm open, and being a Fortean is being open to everything.
Yeah.
You've got to be open to
Being able to actually balance the eyewitness
Mm.
testimonies,
Yeah.
whether there's substantial, materialistic, reductionistic, scientific evidence
Yes.
there against the reality of what we're looking at,
Mhm,
and do it fairly.
Yeah.
Don't have dogma attached to that. I don't have a problem
No.
with the word skeptic.
No.
I just wish every skeptic would look back at the original
Yeah,
etymology
they're not
and
skeptics.
see what
they're
the
just,
definition
yeah.
actually states, because they're
Sometimes,
dogmatic zealots.
Yes,
That's what it
zealot
gets
is-
down to.
when they're frothing at the mouth, the corners. It's like, yeah, you're not a skeptic. You've lost your mind.
So
Anyway.
1874 to 1932 is the life of Charles Fort
Yes, it is.
in New York City.
Mhm.
He did end up going to Britain, into the archives there, but Fort started off as just a conventional businessman
Yes.
and then decided, I need to see change.
Mhm.
Like, I think the yearning is in most people's souls
Yeah.
that can afford to do that, have worked out there's Maslow hierarchy of values. There may come a point in their life where I'm going, I'm not doing my soul service. I really need to find what I'm passionate at
about.
and
Yeah,
excel in it.
exactly.
So he started to write fictional science fiction.
yes, he did.
He wrote 10 books. Only one of those were ever published
Mhm.
because he is an absolute perfectionist.
Mm.
And he
It's
didn't
not a
like
good
them.
thing.
And there
There's
were,
no such thing as
fortunately,
perfect.
there are a few authors in the day
Mhm.
that were really obsessed with Fort. They thought he was rather witty,
Yeah.
sardonic, and caustic in his approach to writing. They thought he was a great writer as well,
Yeah.
great storyteller.
Mhm.
And that's another beautiful thing about Fort. when we go right back to the turn of the 20th century, and here's the marker, here's the man that gave us the world now that we see as paranormal, supernatural. He despised the term supernatural.
Yes, he did.
Because just like Christopher Noel,
yeah,
yourself, Alex Denomi, many other people we speak to, the paranormal is the normal. The supernatural is the natural.
Yeah.
We just haven't reached the point for accounting to that.
Yeah.
But Fort was the first person to take all those anomalous experiences and separate them into their own world of categorization, which for the first time, when you think about it, prior to that, if there was a mystical, anomalous, or paranormal experience occurring, 9 times out of 10, the church should be brought in.
Absolutely.
It was a theological issue. It was a spiritual issue. And we'll deal with that from a demonology perspective, maybe.
It's,
Yeah. So, but along comes Fort.
When fish falls from the sky, people start to worry.
Well, you know what? That's really one of the most unique things about Fort's collecting that sort of marks you as a Fortean to be aware of the anomalous falls from the sky. And primarily, I think one of the great ubiquitous falls in all countries in the world have been fish.
Yes.
And were they carried there by some sort of wind funnel?
We still don't know.
We still
don't know. Nobody really knows. There's been theories, but
So Fort started to categorize all this stuff, and he wrote 4 astounding books, starting with the Book of the Damned.
The Damned, yes.
So if you could just show us.
Absolutely.
This is, I think, 1919 it was published, but here's a homemade copy from 1918, I think, that Fort had put together. And the Book of the Damned was because he took this whimsical notion of reductionistic, mechanistic science and thought that it wasn't allowing these things to be collected and looked at because it couldn't explain them.
No, that's right. Or
so
to even
we discard them.
Yeah, well, they're damned. They're no one's going to look into them. Nobody's going to research them.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So philosophically, Fort decided to give them a place. And it was between the covers of his books. This man was so groundbreaking.
There's the paperback.
Yeah, great. I love the 60s renditions and the artwork of Fort's work because in many ways Fort is as contemporary as he is a piece of old modern history.
For sure.
And to the field of the anomalous, well, I mean, there wouldn't have been J. Allen Hynek. There wouldn't have been the Close Encounters Code 1, 2, and 3. That would not have happened.
Yeah. This is the foundation for all
of this
stuff.
Research, the paranormal.
Yeah.
So Fort was documenting cases of ball lightning before it was scientifically verified.
It was even before it was called ball lightning.
He was actually documenting cases that were extremely ufological and even spoke about the ET hypothesis.
That's right.
Let's have a look at the Low.
That's his next book.
This is a really tacky cover, but I really love the colors and the fonting. It's quite a classic.
To read Charles Fort is to ride on a comet.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Let's go to New Lands.
Yeah.
And this was the one where I think, and I could be wrong, there's many Forteans out there that will clarify this better, but I think he can come up with a hypothesis in this book. And his hypotheses were very imaginative and speculative and not to be taken seriously. And some critics over the years have taken them way too seriously. The hypothesis,
he didn't take himself that seriously.
No, he didn't. No. And his wit was astounding. The hypothesis of that book, New Lands, was the fact that the Earth actually sits stationary.
Right.
And everything around us circulates.
Right. Okay.
And maybe if you go to the ends of the Earth, you'll just hit these massive blocks of ice.
Right.
So, I mean, it's an interesting hypothesis for its time.
Sure.
And he ended that with New Lands. I think they've actually found a 5th book of Fort's out there.
Right.
Not New Lands, with Wild Talents, which was all about telepathy, all those. So he covered the entire world of anomalous phenomena.
Absolutely.
So if it wasn't for Charles Fort, well, would we even be here doing this podcast today?
Well, who knows? We probably would, but it'd probably be called something else.
Now, just to give us a good idea of Fort, I thought I'd give people a taste of a site that I admire greatly on YouTube.
Mhm.
So let's go down to our moving images.
Okay.
That's the very first,
That's
not the first,
No,
it's one of
that's
the earliest
yeah,
issues
it's an
of
early
Fortean
issue. That's
Times.
51,
But we're
actually.
digressing. We'll
Yeah,
get
we
to
are.
Fortean Times in a moment
Yes.
and celebrate that 50 years
We will.
of doing his research.
Mm.
We're going to have a little tiny look. We're not going to look at the whole piece here. This is by the extraordinary channel called Think Anomalous.
Mhm.
Now, if you want the economy of time,
Mm.
a really quick, snappy, precise, meticulous definition
That's it.
of a lot of anomalous subjects matter,
Mhm. Yeah.
beautifully illustrated
Yeah.
and documented, go to Think Anomalous.
On YouTube.
So use this tiny piece we're going to give you.
Mhm.
If you're curious,
To expand.
go and look at this site.
Yeah.
Maybe you're already aware of it.
Yeah.
You're on Untold Radio.
Whether you know it or not, your thinking on the paranormal owes a lot to an early 20th century writer named Charles Fort. Fort collected reports of scientific anomalies in an effort to undermine the mathematized and mechanistic worldview that he felt was entrenched in the science of his era. In 4 seminal books, Fort showed the world that there was a lot about nature that is still unexplained, and he carved the outlines of the overarching category for anomalous phenomena that we know today as the paranormal. Charles Fort was born to a well-to-do family in Albany, New York in 1874, but abandoned his home and family business to start a career as a freelance writer. Perpetually unsatisfied with his own output, Fort allowed only 1 of 10 novels he wrote to be published, but his sharp wit and abstracted sense of perspective won him some notable fans in the literary world. One such fan was the American novelist Theodore Dreiser, who hounded contacts to publish Fort's work. After failing to find a publisher for his science fiction novels, Fort gave up on fiction entirely. He began spending his days at the New York Public Library, reading through backlogs of science journals and newspapers for anecdotes of unexplained anomalies. He compiled thousands, and they became the basis of Fort's first nonfiction work, The Book of the Damned. With Dreiser's help, it was published in 1919. The Book of the Damned is a bizarre and radical document. Fort bombards his readers with anecdotes of all kinds of unexplained phenomena. Out-of-place artifacts, reports of UFOs and aerial wonders, and records of strange things falling from the sky. Lots of strange things.
Lots of strange things.
from the
And you can see there the power of Think Anomalous. They probably do the best time economic, concise
Yeah.
description of the power of Charles Fort. And so Fort laid down this groundwork for all of us to research this phenomena without coming in and really corrupting it with our perception.
Sure.
But a lot of people would say that Fort's perception fell over all of his writings. And I guess that's up to the reader
Mhm.
to be able to read between the lines, to see when Fort is being ironic and humorous. And at the same time, I think he saw the paradox
Yes.
that
he did.
modern society going into this incredible technological age
Mm.
was having real difficulty in coping with the world of the anomalous.
Yeah.
All right. So what we should do here,
Mhm.
that's our little piece dedicated to the incredible life of Charles Fort. He was born in Albany and short life, 57 years, but laid the groundwork. Now, the astounding thing about Fort is really what, 5, 6, maybe 7 books were published.
Yeah.
A small amount of articles.
Sure.
Probably one of the least prolific writers in the world.
Absolutely.
Yet he spawned a world of prolific
Yes.
writers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of his greatest, probably the most latter-day
Mhm.
Charles Fortean you
Fortean.
could come across
Yeah.
is William Corliss. And we'll get to the
That's-
work of William
Yeah.
Corliss
Yeah.
that didn't occur to 1974.
Right.
He's a bit like Trevor James Constable
Mhm.
in terms of Wilhelm Reich.
Yes, he is.
He's probably the greatest student that ever lived and
Mm-hmm.
took up the gauntlet. Because with Fort's work, Aspasia,
Yes.
you have to dedicate your life to it.
Oh, you do.
Once you
It
start, you
doesn't
never stop.
It
So the
doesn't
New York
stop.
Library for Fort was scientific journals
Mhm.
and newspapers of
Yes.
the day.
Yeah.
He went to Britain and did it as well.
Mhm.
Corliss just stuck to scientific
Yeah, right.
journals.
Yeah, he didn't.
Now,
Mhm.
I guess what we should say to the public is the whole notion there was to do it within the scientific model,
Yeah.
like peer review. You find at least 3 or 4
Awesome.
reports
That's right.
from completely different sources
Yep.
that had no way of collaborating
Mhm.
or knowing the other person's information whatsoever.
Yeah.
So they're not contaminated,
Exactly.
yet they're experiencing
they're not
something
copycatting.
very
Yep.
similar.
That's right.
And then thousands and thousands of hours of work.
Mhm.
You can imagine how laborious that would have been back
God,
then.
absolutely.
That would have been before the microfiche,
well,
way before the internet.
how did you? Yeah.
Even Corliss
You
was
would have
right
had to
before the internet.
physically travel to all these different places.
Yeah.
To check out their newspapers.
And I guess the library was the greatest collection point,
it was.
but it would have been meticulously endless,
you would
painstaking
physically have to
work.
go through all the newspapers.
Yep, every single page meticulously.
And you couldn't print them off. You would have had to copy them.
So,
My
you
God.
know, out of that, a
Mm.
Fortean society grew up.
Yes.
And that was primarily put together by other writers that really appreciated
Mhm.
Fort's work.
Yeah.
And secretly, they grabbed Fort, I think it was around 1931, took him to the gala inaugural meeting of the Fortean Society.
Right.
And he said, look, can't you see from my writings, I have always had a problem with authority.
Yeah.
I guess he was ill. He was dead
Obviously,
a
yeah.
year later.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he probably wasn't
Wasn't
well.
a well person.
He said, I have a great distrust for authority, and I am leaving this society in your hands.
Oh, okay.
You just do
Yeah.
with it what you wish.
Okay.
I've done my books. You do this.
Yeah, I've started it. Now it's for you people to carry it on.
So in 1973, a
Mhm.
gentleman named Bob Rickard. Now,
Yes.
the oddest thing is that there's something in the genes with all these people. He was very interested in science fiction as well.
Mhm.
Came across the writings of Charles Fort,
Yep.
became very inspired and created a little fanzine called The News.
All right. Yes.
And The News, of course, grew into the endless,
Mm.
ubiquitous, astounding Fortean Times.
Yes.
And Fortean Times is the only magazine in 33 years of being together
Yeah.
that has been the only consistent thing
That's
in
the
our
only
life.
thing we've
Every month,
consistently purchased. Yeah.
subscribed, purchased,
Yeah.
been
Been
adherent to.
given to. Yeah.
Do you remember the Fortean Times actually did yesterday's
compilation.
news tomorrow?
Yeah.
Did a compilation. This is the first 15 issues
Yeah,
of the
Compiled.
news.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite astounding.
Yeah.
So I think you can still purchase these off the site, but the last printing
Can
of
you?
this was in 92.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to just do a little bit of reading there,
Yeah.
Aspa?
Okay. So the magazine's tagline is "The World of Strange Phenomena."
Once I'll put some covers up while
Okay,
you're talking,
no problem.
darling.
Okay, so the identification of correct original sources by contributors is a defining feature of the magazine, as it was for Charles Fort himself. However, the objective reality of these reports is not as important. The magazine maintains a position of benevolent skepticism towards both the orthodox and unorthodox and toes no party line. The range of subject matter is extremely broad, including general Forteana.
But you know what else? I'd stop you there.
Yeah.
I'd say in the last couple of decades, you and I have been quite disappointed at times with Fortean Time
we have.
because it has towed a party line.
Absolutely.
And it has become
Skeptic. It's
erring on
gone-
the
yeah.
side when it comes to ufology
Yeah.
and certain
It really-
subjects.
Mhm.
It errs on the skeptical side.
And the
And
mean skeptical
It's
too.
too heavy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Leslie Keane
It just depends
her
who's
book
or
got
you know,
no stars.
no.
How could that have happened?
I don't know.
Now we're looking at covers of Fortean
Okay.
Times whilst you're reading.
So-
just go through some of the categories. there in
So general
Forteana.
Forteana, anomalous phenomena, apparitions, bizarre deaths. That's my favorite. I always go to the back cover. Oh yes.
Now Fortean
that's-
Times Lovecraft.
Absolutely.
Who else would cover
Well-
Lovecraft so eloquently?
Yeah.
And the amount of writers, studied writers, academics they
Mhm,
have in this
mhm.
publication is just astounding.
Yeah. So as I said, bizarre deaths is my first go-to. Conspiracy theories, crop circles, cryptozoology, cults and would-be messiahs and prophets.
Can you explain that to me again? Bizarre deaths is your first go-to. What do you mean by that? Is that the first thing you
That's
read?
the first thing I read.
That's the last thing
That's
I
the last
read. It
page.
scares me too
No,
much.
I love that's what I wait for.
Explain to people
Don't
about the
just like-
bizarre deaths.
Well,
what
it
you
is
find in
some of
there.
the most bizarre deaths that you're ever going to come across. They really give you all the details, all the gory details.
When we look at an ironic paradox,
Yeah.
which is the cover here,
Oh yes, yes.
and a lot of American researchers
Yeah.
will tell you that
That
there
there's
is
no
no
big-
such thing as a
but
British
there
Bigfoot.
is. Yep.
But look at this, both covers, Asper. Just check this out
Yeah.
before we go further.
Oh yeah.
The Woodrows.
Woodwards. Yeah. All right. So
Okay.
where were we? Cult. Yeah. Fringe science, hoaxes, millennialism, eschatology and cases of mass hysteria, mutants, human and animal, parapsychology, religious phenomena like stigmata, appearances and simulacra and miracles, etc. Natural simulacra, unidentified flying objects, urban legends. Fortean Times also frequently covers the ignoble prizes as well as unusual aspects of mainstream science and research.
If you haven't checked out the IG ignoble prizes, you've got the most way out notions and bizarre ideas that actually get published in Nature and Science. It's so bizarre. Now, I'd say what I've looked at, the numbers, not just looking at the YouTube uploading numbers, but the numbers for Fortean Times, subscribers worldwide are only about 15,000.
Well, it's in December 2018, its print circulation was just over 14,800 copies per month.
I would have thought it would have been a lot more.
And this now appears to include digital sales, so it's not hard copies, but this is like our Bible. This thing,
it really is. And you know what? You can go up and just punch in ForteanTimes.com. They have a website. Go straight there. We're not going to put the link up. You can find that yourself. Now, it wasn't this issue, but one of the issues did a piece on David Percy. Who was it? David Percy? Let me just check that. David S. Percy, who wrote Dark Moon. Now, he was one of your Apollo debunkers. And this is an incredible time. Let me just knock itself there. Have people seen Dark Moon by David Percy? Now, it could be quite romanticistic writing at times. It's a 6-hour documentary.
We've got it.
That follows it. We have got it.
I love
fascinating.
I love it.
Well, I have a problem believing it's fraudulent.
Well,
you don't.
No, no. I don't. It's not that I believe it, but there's some aspects, and he comes up with some things in there that you're kind of scratching your head going, how does that work? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. So
I don't totally dismiss it. I don't totally believe it.
Yeah.
But there is some things in there that actually leave a big question mark on that whole.
Now, do you remember the name of our lady in Western Australia that said she saw a Coke bottle?
Don't. Oh, my God.
Una
Rommel.
She remembered a Coke bottle being kicked on. Now, Australia was very unique. Because we're actually getting all the data coming into us. But look, we are digressing. Check that out by Dark Moon. But that the grey matter, not the dark matter. The grey matter in the brain is still going. Rommel. Never forget. So that was in the 90s.
Yes,
that issue came out, and that caused major controversy and flooded their site. People were really angry that they would go there. But they followed it up with an academic article. I'm not going to name the name, which debunked the Kenneth Arnold sighting, which made the ufology community in an uproar as well.
Yeah, look,
so you can't win either way.
No, you can't. Anyway, look, current contents of the magazine is it's got the magazine's current regular contents include 3 or 4 featured articles.
Right.
Strange Days. It's a wide-ranging overview of odd and interesting stories, mostly culled from the world's newspapers. So that's all over the place.
The other thing we should say is that Fortean Times is made up by a most enthusiastic worldwide grouping of news clippers. News clipping.
For sure.
We used to subscribe to the UFO news clipping service.
Absolutely.
It is one of the greatest sources to find out this information. Because that's why we're going back to that's why we're going to Fortean Times. Entomology people step right back to the source when this stuff was first written about documented research, and you'll probably find a clearer truth than the noise that gets to attach to the signal over the course of time. Keep going, my dear.
Okay, so Strange Days, it's a wide-ranging overview of odd and interesting stories, mostly culled from the world's newspapers. Some features in particular sections, including science, archaeology. The archaeology is fascinating.
It's always brilliant. And they have Paul Devereaux in there too, don't they?
Steve King and Paul Devereaux. They're usually the two that sort out that the archaeology. Ghosts in a column titled Ghost Watch by
Ghost Watch is a great column.
By Alan Murdy. Alien Zoo by Dr. Carl Schucker's a regular discussion of cryptozoological matters.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Necrologue obituaries of Fortean
And
relevant individuals. Everybody appears in there.
All sadness is we should actually have, and we'll do it on our next podcast.
Yeah.
We should have dedicated this one because it's primarily about a fanzine that grew into an astounding magazine in the history of Forteana.
Yeah.
To the man on the periphery of that, which is Ken Thomas.
Ken Thomas. Yeah.
Ken Thomas, who died recently, the brain behind Steam Shovel Press.
Exactly.
And he passed away at a young 65, my age.
Ooh, okay. So UFO Files, Sources of the Damned is by Nigel Watson, who provides a regular survey of the latest fads and flaps from
Nigel
the world of
needs
ufology.
a little bit of a slap around
Well,
me,
UFO Files,
metaphorically.
it's a UFO casebook, is Jenny Randell's roundup of sightings and hotspots from around the world. Clippings from for most of Strange Days stories are requested from and supplied by the Fortean by readers of Fortean Times. Myth Conceptions, I love Myth Conceptions as well, which debunks modern myths, old wives' tales, etc., in a similar manner to, for example, Snopes.com, SNOPES.com. Classical Corner, in which Barry Baldwin reviews 40 events from ancient times, and they did have a article in there about Aspasia.
Oh, really?
In that one.
Tell us about that article.
I can't remember.
Okay. Now, if you're looking at the cover here now, I had this one on for a while because they cover worldwide mysteries and they do a lot of great stories in Australia. And this is still a bit of an anomalous mystery. They reckon they've debunked it recently, but I'm not sure about that. And here's the great Nope. Behind Nope,
yeah.
And it's
Living Creatures,
it's the Trevor James.
Okay, the Fortean Bureau of Investigation, which typically revisits and reassesses older Fortean cases. Forum.
And there's modern Fortean cases with the Mandela effect featured.
Forum featuring 3 or 4 stories, shorter articles on diverse topics. Reviews of Fortean science fiction, fantasy, and related books, films, and computer games. I always go and check out the books and the films. Absolutely,
it's a must, isn't it?
It is
they
a must.
Do TV series as well.
They do. The letters page
is fascinating.
Yeah. And Simulacra Corner, photographs submitted by readers of typically naturally occurring objects which appear to be in the shape of something else.
And something that's so brilliant, they put into compendiums of books, is the section where they have letters where it happened to me.
It happened to me. So
people's first-hand witness accounts.
Absolutely. That's always a fascinating section. Fortean Traveller, a guide to various sites of interest to the travelling Fortean. Phenomenics, a comic strip. It's a comic strip by Hunt Emerson. It is a great comic strip.
It's very funny at times.
That's what is.
Alistair Crowley gets a beating in that comic strip.
If you buy one magazine, well, that's what we do. We only buy one magazine, and this is the one.
Yeah, and it's great to have it in hard copy. It's beautifully glossy done. Yeah. Here we are dealing with contemporary conspiracies.
Yeah,
I guess you could actually
what?
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
Fantastic. Yeah. Let's have a look at a few more issues here of Fortean Times.
The spirit photography. Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of criticism about Fortean Times, especially in the last couple of decades, to being a bit top heavy on its ads, and its ads sometimes feeling a bit snake oil salesman like.
Well,
you can't help that. Don't you love that?
Yeah, but
unidentified frying object. They have a lot of humor as well.
Yeah, they do. They do. Well, that's keeping up the Fortean.
And they get into unusual areas.
Jack Chick.
Tell us about Jack Chick.
Well, the Chick books. Jack
Tracks.
Tracks. Yeah, he used to write these little tracks. I know the one that's like
very extreme.
Yeah,
cartoons,
very extreme.
Weren't they?
If you don't toe the line, very religious. If you do the wrong thing, if you if you want to break one of the 10 commandments, you're going to die and you're going to go to hell. In
a very disastrous
You're going to die and you're going to go to hell.
And he visually shows
my God.
that. And those tracks were handed out everywhere, weren't they?
They were all over the place. So that was a fascinating article, that one on Jack Chick. There's also a documentary on Jack Chick.
Here's one on the Kubrick conspiracy. Did he do the moon landing?
Well, did he? I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, that happened out there at the moon landing wasn't Kubrick. That was there in the middle of LA, wasn't
exactly.
it? We found that out during one of our casts.
That's right. And that was what's his name? Our man with Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
Oh, Liberace.
Jackie Gleason.
How did Liberace do? I just love their articles are amazing.
Yeah, they really are.
Their articles are
And
fabulous.
look, even though we have moments where we could tear our hair out at some of the stuff that seems
but
like
that'd be really weird if everything that they put in there we totally agreed 100%.
You know what? I think it's good sometimes to actually see those negative articles
for sure.
and build up ammunition to fight against them.
Or sometimes you can read something
and be enlightened and
go,
go, oh my God.
And go, okay, all right, I had that one all wrong. You've got to be open. You've got to be able to learn new things and take them on board. Otherwise, you're static. You're stagnant.
This is on LaSalle Avenue, end of May 2007. 2007.
Now, you might have thought, what in the hell was that?
Yeah.
And if you're on audio, you probably wondered big time, what the hell was that?
Mm-hmm.
But that was actually, it's not a fish fall. It's
no,
not a
that
frog
was seeds.
Fall. That was seeds
falling
so it
from
looked
the
like
sky.
snow, but it was actually seeds.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question that you told me not to ask you.
Yeah.
Did anybody collect those, plant them, and see what grew out of them?
Oh, that would have been brilliant.
Why would you not do that?
That should have been done.
That should have been done.
Now, in the late 90s here, there was a program called The Extraordinary.
Yes, there was.
And in the midst of that, we were toting our archives as a special place for material on anomalies in film and stuff. And we had some moments, didn't we?
We did.
We had a moment where we sold what was supposedly real UFO 16mm footage to Coca-Cola.
Well, it was real. It's a real UFO. I mean, that's been deemed a real footage. And, Coca-Cola rang us.
People would debate that.
Well, yeah, and there's other people that wouldn't.
And in the midst of that, we met Mike Dash, I think.
Yes,
now,
we did.
I'm trying to remember if this is Mike Dash, because it was 20-something years ago.
We were in
maybe 25 years ago.
More. Yeah.
But,
more.
And this is an old piece. I think this is 27 years old, but this will give you an idea of the fact that this is just not a magazine there to support the advertising. This magazine comes from an extremely passionate place. Every writer, every contributor, every person that's gone to work for Fortean Times cares about what they're doing one way or another, even if they are debunking.
Fortean Times is a magazine published in London every month. It's been going now for about 23 years. It's named after an American writer called Charles Fort, who flourished at the turn of the century, and he was the first man to gather together and write down stories of strange phenomena in a coherent way. He spent a lifetime, in fact, trawling through the scientific literature of 2 continents in the British Library, the New York Public Library, and came up with what are now recognised as the first modern tales of UFOs, for example. He gathered together hundreds of examples of frogs that have fallen from the sky, fishes that have come down. He also wrote about what he called wild talents, what we now call psychical phenomena, psychokinesis, poltergeist, and so on. But the key thing which he did was he wrote it all down with an open mind and a sense of humour, and that's what Fortean Times is still dedicated to doing now. So the magazine doesn't accept absolutely anything that it writes. We don't believe it firmly. We try to exclude known hoaxes, but we don't have the resources or the knowledge to check out everything that we publish, and by definition anything that comes within our purview is likely to have insufficient evidence for it to be proven one way or the other. And that gives us an open-mindedness, hopefully, because the problem with the unexplained is that as soon as you start to adopt a single theory and you believe it firmly, you then exclude evidence that doesn't fit your theory, and that starts making you close-minded, and eventually it turns you into a crank. Now, at 14 Times we have the freedom to publish all sorts of material without believing it firmly, and that means that we can publish stuff which is sounds fairly unbelievable, and we don't have to endorse it. So, for example, recently we've had stories coming out of Africa. Uganda, for example, there's a panic over there about vanishing wedding tackle. It's believed that a group of sorcerers are going around stealing people's genitals for use in aphrodisiac potions, and the way they do that is by shaking hands with you. And at the moment you shake hands, your genitals vanish. There's therefore a widespread refusal to shake hands with strangers in Uganda at the moment, and those people who are daring to do it are then selfishly going to a corner, sticking their hands in their pockets and just sort of checking that everything is still as it should be. Over on the other side of the country, in Nigeria recently, there was a bizarre case of a serial killer called Alfred John, who claimed that he was a transvestite water goddess who'd been possessed by this Mami Waters, a sort of mermaid spirit, and had been compelled by it to kill and suck the blood of about 200 people. We've also had stories from the forests of Central Africa about a madman who's been going to the forest there with a tranquilizer dart gun, shooting gorillas with it, and then while they're out cold he dresses them in clown suits and releases them back into the wild. We could tell similar stories from any continent in the world, really. I mean, Russia is an area where there are a lot of strange things going on at the moment. We had a case recently of a psychic called Alexei Frenkel, who claimed to be the world's greatest psychokinetic. He could move and stop things with the power of his mind, and one day he decided to demonstrate this by walking along a railway track and stopping the Omsk diesel express with his brain power. He was run over by the train and killed, and his assistant apologised to the waiting media and said that sadly Alexei just didn't believe strongly enough today. Britain, of course, is also full of strange phenomena. We cover everything in the UK, from the Loch Ness Monster in the north down to the Beast of Bodmin in the south, and also tales of strange human behaviour. We cover ghosts, miracles, weeping and moving statues, for example, are well on the up at the moment as we move towards the millennium. We've had cases from around the world of statues that weep, shed tears, menstruate in one case from Chile, and also visions of the Virgin Mary in places like Ireland, Romania and Australia recently have been reported. And all this seems to be tied in with what we call PMT, premillennial tension, as people start worrying about the end of the world, the prophecies of Nostradamus and so on. So really at the moment, interest levels in reports of strange phenomena are at an all-time high, and it's a great time to be publishing Fortean Times.
I think some of that PMT has actually drifted over into this part of the, and we've all got still a bit about that. How about that? The penis panic of Uganda.
Oh God!
Somewhere in Africa, someone's getting clown outfits onto gorillas.
I mean, they
what is going on there?
How
and
do you
that's
know
what
that
Fortean Times is really good at,
and do they
keeping
have
you
clown
abreast of it
shoes
all.
for them as well? I mean,
Probably. That's a lot of work when you think about it.
Scary.
So
crazy.
I hope that was Mike Dash. I think that was Mike Dash. My memory is very vague, and when I got that source from, it didn't tell me anything about that. But Fortean Times do lots of stuff.
Yeah,
they release books. They release compendiums of those personal stories. You know, I saw this. I was affected by that.
Yeah.
They've just done a great ghost bumper issue.
They've also organised the Unconvention.
Tell us about that.
So it's organised Unconventional, or Uncon.
Uncon. You win.
Most years since 1994.
Yeah,
right. And so the missing years being 2001, 2005, and 2009 at various venues in London, the University of London, Union, the Institute of Education.
Isn't that amazing that the University of London will let them do it there?
And in recent years, Friend's House. Many hot topics of the day have been discussed, such as the Ray Santilli alien autopsy in the day, film at the 1996 Uncon, and the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, at the 1998 event, which also saw Lynn Picknett and Clive Prince discussing Templar conspiracies and hidden symbolism in the paintings of Leonardo da Vinci.
Right.
Years before these were
the Da Vinci Code.
Turned into mass media subject by the Da Vinci Code. And besides the formal lecture program, Uncon normally features exhibits by organisations such as the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena and the Centre for Fortean Zoology. The event often ends with a panel discussion, as was in the case of 2002 when the subject was, "Is ufology dead?" This was widely reported in the British media as an official statement by Fortean Times that ufology is dead.
Well, and it makes me as excited as it does infuriates me at times. But, that is no need to not respect the mere fact that something so obscure with such a small subscription list can be passionately driven over a 5-decade period, which I think is astounding. And it says a lot, too, about the impact of someone like Charles Fort on the world. Now, briefly, we should just talk about the extraordinary William Corliss, whose work, a sourcebook project, started in 1973. He was a physicist and a writer.
Same year as the Fortean Times.
He wrote, he wrote literally tens of books for NASA, for the Atomic Energy Commission, before becoming the greatest academic anomalous cataloger in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And his books are second to none. Now,
Oh,
that's
you're not gonna
green.
see
You're
that.
not
You're
going
gonna
to
see
see
the
it.
green,
You're
that
going to see
one.
the blue?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
The
okay.
green one's just totally different.
Look at that.
The green one is Carolina Bays, Mima Mounds, and submarine canyons and other topographical phenomena.
These are encyclopedic
It's a catalogue
texts.
of geological anomalies.
Rare halos, mirages, anomalous rainbows. How about
And this one's a catalogue of geophysical anomalies.
And electromagnetic spectrum effects.
Yeah.
Lightning, auroras, nocturnal lights, and related
geophysical anomalies and related luminous phenomena.
These are just a few.
What's that one?
Tornadoes, dark days.
Right.
Read the rest.
Anomalous precipitation and related
Anomalous
weather phenomena.
precipitation. How minute can you go into this field?
Well, you can.
I remember we actually did this on Coffee Time with. Yeah.
Oh, this one, anomalies in geology, physical, chemical, biological.
All right. That's some of the work of William Corliss.
Yeah.
There's only one lecture of Corliss's up on YouTube that I can find. If someone else can find, please send me a link. It's about anomalies in bird life. It is absolutely fascinating, but the sound and the visual recording are dreadful.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You have to be patient with it, but there is very little recorded data of William Corliss. And you know where it was? It was in the 90s at the London Fortean Society that he was lecturing, because he considered himself the latter-day Charles Fort. And I think even our man, who's a bit questionable times, Arthur C. Clarke, deemed William Corliss as that. Here now, I believe in Switzerland, there is a huge anomalous archives that has accepted the work of Fort. Let's have a look at it. We've got a few of those spring folders ourselves, early Fort's work, which were just loose leaf folders.
Yeah,
but look
we
at
gave it to someone.
We gave it to Jerry Clark one. So
Clark,
Jerry, you deserve to give us your encyclopedias. And it's been 20-something years, man.
It's been
What's
more than
happening? Yeah, we had a couple of those red ones.
Yeah, we
didn't
did. We had a blue one and a red.
But look at all this in the white boxes. Is unpublished work.
Wow.
Material that he's gathered.
Yeah. Okay.
So there is no one like William Corliss.
Wow. And he's still going, isn't he?
No, he died.
Oh, he died.
He died in 2011. He was in his 80s. He was not like Fort.
Okay,
so quite tragic.
yeah.
But, you know, the other thing, too, is we must mention, I couldn't find a digital copy of that.
No.
This wonderful issue.
The Wonderful Weirdness of Oz. Yeah.
And you and I
we're in there.
Are in there.
Yeah.
We're in there where we're photographing anomalies with Mike Williams down in the Euclid Basin.
And Anthony Marr,
Yeah, and the Nullarbor.
Yeah.
So astounding, Fortean Times. And you know what? I reckon at some stage we do need to put together an article, another issue on this, the Oz ones. Yep.
All right.
So where do we go from William Corliss?
Well, where do we go from
We go to the great Reverend Lionel Fanthorpe.
Fanthorpe, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what I might do is just before that, there's a little piece
because
from Fortean
he also
Times.
He did the Fortean TV.
He did Fortean TV.
If you go down to the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. Read all about the folk horror revival and much, much more in the new issue of Fortean Times, out now.
Isn't that brilliant? That voice then sounded like it was directly out of The Wicker Man.
It did.
And look, that's another thing that we have, what we think is some very devastating information as to where the 144 negatives of the entire 6 seasons of In Search of went.
Oh, yeah,
but we're organising an interview.
Yeah, we are.
And it's tragic.
Yeah. Okay.
And it nearly happened with The Wicker Man, wasn't it? Didn't they have to find the negative was buried under the M5 in Britain?
Yeah, and they just saved that.
One of the greatest films on paganism and witchcraft ever done.
So this is Ian.
No, this is Lionel. Lionel Fanthorpe.
Lionel and his wife.
Yeah, and his wife is actually, she's fantastic. They've been together for many decades. I think teenage marriage virtually. And she's the manager. Yeah. She's the tour manager because he is deemed as a reverend a writer,
He's out of
and
control.
an entertainer. But he is
Seriously.
everything.
He's amazing.
He is a fifth dan black belt.
Yep.
He's a world traveler.
Yep.
He has written more
One of the most prolific
science fiction writers in the world,
apparently.
So when it was decided in the 90s to do a short-lived number of seasons called Fortean TV,
yes,
they actually looked at Lionel and said, hey, this person is more important for this role than anyone else in the world.
We've got, oh yeah, there it is.
So Fortean TV, can you get that? You hold that up properly. You get it a bit better than me.
Yeah,
they have finally released it onto DVD. No, hold it back further. Might be better.
Yeah.
Virtually difficult to see there.
Yeah, Fortean TV.
Okay, well let's have a look at what Fortean TV.
I'm Father Lionel Fanthorpe. Welcome to the world of Fortean TV, a celebration of the miraculous, the mysterious, and the downright weird.
I guess I'm a modern day vampire with a very old soul.
I mummified my own cat. It is something odd.
I said, "You're so beautiful. Who are you?" And he said, "I am Ramtha the Enlightened One."
It's worth getting.
Oh, so worth getting. 22 episodes and a couple of outrageous Christmas specials. The one thing that is beautiful is that Lionel has embraced the ethos of Charles Fort.
He has.
And in many ways, Fortean Times. Yep. And there is so much humor in that TV series, yet so much great investigation.
Absolutely.
And so unique. It's amazing how Britain, and I guess that's where Fort may have ended up doing his cataloguing at the end of his life, his short life, embraced Forteana. They've embraced it greater than anywhere else in the world. And Lionel is just an absolute joy. Yeah. And, you know, the greatest thing, Aspasia, I think, is the fact that humor does ride through the investigation.
Absolutely.
If you can't have some humor in there, the ability to laugh at yourself, not laugh at eyewitnesses that are traumatized, but to have a laugh at yourself trying to separate truth from myth, from fact. It's really, really difficult. Let's have a look at Lionel today, and he's 89 years of age, still writing with his wife in tandem. I think they actually write together, and he writes still a lot of fictional work. Let's hear about the latest stuff he's doing.
Almost 70 years ago to the day, my first science fiction story was published, and I'm still going strong. This is my latest book, written with my wife Patricia. It's called New Supernatural Stories, and it features 15 new, strange, weird, and eerie short stories. It's published by PS Publishing Limited, and is available as a paperback or a limited edition hardback in a slipcase. It's available from all the usual outlets, or check out the publisher's website at www.pspublishing.co.uk. I hope you will enjoy these new stories as much as we did writing them. Until next time, this is Lionel, signing off for now.
And you know what my hope is, Aspasia? That Lionel never signs off.
No.
Lionel is a great example to all of us that if you have an open heart, that you will find and feel some really astounding things can occur in your life.
Yep.
And he's had some incredible anomalous experiences, and he does not bring his religious theology to bear on
No,
them.
he doesn't.
He just keeps an open mind
Mhm.
and keeps searching.
Yeah.
So in many ways, Lionel does embody Charles Fort
Fort.
as much as William Corliss
Yes.
embodies the calling that Fort put out there to
Mhm.
actually take his work and improve on it.
Yeah.
And fortunately, Corliss was able to fall into a much easier time. There was access to information
right.
and scientific journals, and there'd
Mhm.
been progress.
Yeah.
But we must remember, Charles Fort brought us teleportation.
That's
He
right.
coined the term.
Mhm.
He made many scientific discoveries, ball lightning being
Mhm.
just one of
One of them.
those.
Yeah.
But I guess the final curve we can't.
There we are.
There we
Oh,
are.
What happened?
Gee
Yes.
we had an anomalous moment there. Excuse
Okay.
us.
So, Kevin,
So the
let's
final
finish
curve
this.
in the road,
Yeah.
is the extraordinary Doug Highcheck and
Yeah.
Monster Quest, which
Yes.
in many ways sort of embraced the cryptozoological
Exactly.
aspect of Fort's work.
That's right.
But Doug with Untold Radio has gone on to embrace the entire umbrella
That's
of
right.
anomalous
Yeah,
research.
exactly.
And I guess Dr. Dean
Mhm.
and ourselves take up the mantle of a lot of the what people would term at times
Peripheral?
the woo factor.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
The peripheral, well, not that
No,
woo. We get
peripheral,
into
yeah.
science, we
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
into
Everything.
some things that seem a
Mhm.
little undercover at
Yeah.
times and should have a bit more light brought on them.
Mhm.
So I think Monster Quest is in the 2007.
2007.
And I think that was the History Channel.
Yep.
And I think National Geographic got very jealous.
Mhm.
And who did they pull out? They tracked down the great-grand nephew of Charles Fort, Pat Spain. And his dashing, I
Mhm.
mean,
Well,
Doug's quite dashing as well.
yeah.
Alex is very drop-dead gorgeous, but Pat's got that sort of
No, it's got
incredible
that sort of,
adventurer.
That's right.
He's a wildlife biologist,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
he's also very open to the cryptozoological
Yeah.
world. And
Did a
so
series called Beast Hunter.
that's right.
Yep,
But you
2011.
remember he did an incredible series on Travel Channel.
Yes, he did.
And what was that called? Can you remember?
Oh my God!
That was called Legend Hunter.
Oh, Legend.
Let's
yeah.
get a little taste of the one and
Beast-
only
yeah, Beast
grand nephew of Charles Fort, Pat Spain.
There are over 1 million known animal species. You'd think we found all the good ones.
There's absolutely something moving up there.
Tell that to the beast hunter. Man-eaters, swamp monsters, death worms. Pat Stain's looking for you. Creatures spawn questions.
Whoa!
Pat's hunting for answers.
There are mysterious creatures out here. We've just got to find them.
The most elusive legends go face to face with The Beast Hunter. A new series premieres Friday, March 4th at 9 on National Geographic.
Yeah, so
Well, there you go.
was Pat
That's
Spain.
Pat Spain.
Yep.
So, check out his Travel Channel show. I'm sure he's got more documentaries, anecdotes, blogs, books out there.
Yep.
Pat is the genuine article. He's quite a sweet man.
Mhm.
And he, at moments, he is very scientific, mechanistic,
Yeah.
reductionistic. I
Mhm.
think Charles would be going, "Hey, Pat, you're leaning a little too much on the side of orthodoxy."
Exactly.
Because, there was that incredible disdain in Fort for anyone in
Yeah,
terms of
any
authority,
Yeah.
exceptionalism,
Mhm.
arrogance.
Yeah.
He didn't like it whatsoever. Now, I'm sure, there it is. Just hold that up for one last time.
Okay.
There is
The
the
50th
50th edition of Fortean
Yeah.
Times. We want to thank all the staff, Bob Rickard, Mike Dash, all the incredible
It's
people
such
who
a
have
worth-
contributed,
a
have written to
worthwhile
that
magazine.
magazine, Jenny
Yeah.
Randell's, all the people doing their research. It is astounding.
A lot of
and
fascinating articles in
it's
there.
a long time to keep a magazine
I've learned,
running on the periphery.
I've learned a lot of things from it. I mean, there were all kinds of things in there that I didn't even know were real, and there they were. It was like, whoa, okay, I
We
didn't
have,
even know this was a thing.
and excuse us, Fortean Times,
Mhm.
but it is very convenient.
Mm.
We have a pile about 2 meters tall
in the toilet.
in the bathroom,
Yeah.
sitting there. So
Yeah,
people
so-
that come to our place and need to have a bit
Yeah.
of relaxed time, let the biology sort itself out,
Yeah.
all of a sudden find themselves falling down the well of
Of-
Forteana.
Exactly.
So that is Forteana. That's episode 68 of Untold
Done and dusted.
Radio.
Yep.
Fortean Times, 50 years. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Mhm.
We are working on some extraordinary, I'm not going to curse them, and we've had moments where all that has fallen through in the last couple of weeks. But our hope is that we'll be able to get them. You know that Pat Spain, I just noticed,
What?
I think that man's got a
What?
social media site.
All right. Okay.
So I think we'll have to have a word to him,
Okay.
a word to him
Uh-huh.
about his great, well,
Great uncle. He's great.
uncle,
Yeah, he's great. Grand uncle.
grand uncle. Thank
Yeah.
you. My name's Jay Katz.
And I'm Aspasia.
And it's been a joy to spend
has.
just this time with you. I want to thank all our subscribers, all our people in the chat that are continuously there. Malcolm, Uncle Bones,
Yep.
Charlotte,
Yep.
so many great people. Nexium, Bristol. There are so many astounding people.
John.
Yeah, John, Alex Sonomi,
Yeah.
John Ayres.
John
I mean,
Ayres,
how could
yeah.
we forget John
No,
Ayres?
we didn't forget
the
John
salt
Ayres.
man,
Yeah,
the man
that's-
with the wrench, the man that is willing to take physical assault
The
underground
man who
every
is
day.
the salt of the earth,
Yeah,
literally.
that's what it is. Aspasia. He is just gorgeous.
Anyway.
But we really appreciate each and every one of you. I hope there was something in this cast for you, and I hope you'll go out there and search out that astounding
And if
magazine.
there wasn't, there might be something next week.
Yeah, and if not, search out Charles Fort.
Yep.
Grab yourself a copy of Fortean TV,
Yeah.
3-disc set. It's
Yeah, it's
very cheap.
worthwhile.
It's actually up on Amazon.
Yep.
It's a British TV program. It
Mm.
might have translated over there to the US. And catch Pat Spain at some stage and grab one of the source manuals. Look for that source book project by the one and only William Corliss.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week.
I love the way you say that. Bye.